Ever get that, like, almost ache for something more? That drive to push limits, do something bigger than yourself? But then, where's the line? When does ambition go too far, into the forbidden? That's a question at the heart of Frankenstein and what we're diving into today.
Ooh, yeah, that pull between pushing boundaries and facing consequences definitely runs deep in this one.
It does. And we're getting into it with a really cool mix. This time we've got those letters from Robert Walton and a good chunk of Victor Frankenstein's own story. Two guys, both driven. But in what ways? That's the question. So first up, we're setting sail with Walton. Expert, when you read those letters, beginning of the book, what comes across about the guy?
You get this almost like desperate hunger for discovery right off the bat. He's going north, right? But it's like not just adventure. He needs to leave his mark, achieve something that'll outlast him.
It's like he's chasing immortality almost. Not literally, but...
Yeah. You said it, like this fear of being insignificant, a nobody. And it's not even just exploring the world, it's about finding someone who gets that. Remember how he's desperate for a companion who can sympathize?
Oh, totally. That need to connect, especially when you're heading into the unknown.
Right. That's going to echo through the whole story, that search for understanding.
And just when you think you've got Walton pegged, bam! Letter 4 hits you with that gigantic figure in the mist. Gives me chills every time.
So good, right? Shelley's laying the groundwork, showing us the isolation, the obsession, this idea of messing with the natural order.
Right.
All that's going to be huge with Victor's story. Like a little taste of the darkness to come.
A taste. More like she's whispering, buckle up, it's about to get wild. Okay, so let's pivot to Victor. Expert. Rewind for us. What kind of kid was he? What sets him on this path?
He actually described as a pretty happy childhood, lots of love, that kind of thing. But he was always super curious, especially about nature. Not just looking at bugs, though, more like wanting to take the world apart to see how it ticked.
That thirst for knowledge, but deeper than usual, huh?
Totally. And here's where it gets juicy. He finds these old alchemy books, Cornelius Agrippa, Paracelsus. These guys were all about transmuting elements, immortality, the works. But remember, it's the 1700s, science and superstition are practically holding hands.
So instead of comic books, little Victor's got forbidden alchemy texts. Gotcha.
Exactly. Those books, they planted the seed, This idea of science is almost magical, doing the impossible. It sets the stage for everything.
And as he gets older, that thirst for knowledge leads him to Ingolstadt University. Big change of pace. How does that shape him?
So at Ingolstadt, he's hit with these totally different approaches to science. Professor Crump, he's all about hard facts observation, thinks those alchemists Victor loves are a joke.
But then Victor meets Professor Waldman.
Ah, Waldman. He's got this way of saying, hey, we don't know everything, but the possibilities, endless. Like he gets the limits of science, but he's still excited about the potential.
Gave Victor permission to dream big, basically.
Totally. Waldman throws out there that maybe, just maybe, even death could be conquered. And Victor, with his ambition, well, he doesn't let that idea go, but, sparks. They can get out of control real quick. Like Victor takes Waldman's words and runs with them, but it becomes this whole obsession. Life, death, he's got to crack the code, sleepless nights, dissecting bodies. Creepy, but you can kind of see how he gets sucked in.
Totally. Like the ethics get blurry. He's so focused on this goal.
No breaks. And the isolation. Friends, family, gone. He even calls his workspace this workshop of filthy creation at one point. Super creepy vibes.
And that's where it all leads, right? To that moment of creation. How does Shelley even describe that scene? It's got to be intense.
It's wild. She's building the suspense so well. Doesn't give away all of Victor's methods, keeps it kind of mysterious, adds to the whole playing God feeling. But you get those snippets, the lab, the electricity, the obsession in Victor's eyes. Like imagine the pressure of that moment, right? The air is charged, literally.
And then success. But is it really?
That's the thing. He opens the creature's eyes, it breathes. And Victor's hit with this wave of horror. Not at all what he pictured.
Instead of this perfect being, it's, well, monstrous.
And that's the tragedy, right? The creature isn't born evil, it's this blank slate.
Yeah.
But Victor's so disgusted, he runs, abandons his own creation, basically.
Which, come on, that's got to have consequences.
Yeah.
But before we go there, what about William's death? Huge turning point.
It's rough. Victor tries to go back to normal life, pretend it never happened. But the creature's out there, alone, confused, and takes William's life. Just shatters Victor's world.
And it really shows how Victor's actions have these huge ripple effects. He messed with something he didn't understand, and now innocent people are paying the price.
And it gets worse. Justine, the family servant, she gets blamed for William's death. Totally innocent, but Victor knows the truth, and he can't say anything.
Yes, that feeling of helplessness. Got to eat at you. Okay, so eventually, Victor and the creature, they meet again. What's that like?
Oh, Shelley sets this up perfectly. Picture the Swiss Alps, right? Huge, desolate, kind of terrifying on their own.
Mm.
That's where they meet again.
Like even nature's holding its breath watching these two.
Seriously. And the creature, he's angry at first, obviously, but then he tells his story. The loneliness, the confusion, how everyone treats him. He even taught himself to read, found paradise lost, sorrows of Werther.
He was watching the DeLacy family too, learning about people, connection, all that. It's actually kind of sad. He just wants to belong.
Exactly. But then he sees his reflection, and it's like this punch to the gut. He knows he's different, monstrous.
And that leads to his big demand, right? What does he want from Victor?
He wants a companion, someone like him. Not just acceptance, but like
Yeah.
a whole other being. It's ballsy. He's basically saying, you made me, now deal with it.
And Victor, I mean, talk about a moral dilemma.
Huge. Part of him, deep down, gets it. Sees the creature's loneliness, how unfair it all is. But then there's that fear, what if he screws up again?
What if two of them is even worse than one?
Exactly. Can you imagine the havoc? Victor's picturing them turning on humanity, maybe even like reproducing, creating a whole new race of creatures. The stakes are insanely high.
And through all of this, there's Elizabeth. She's such a presence in Victor's life, this symbol of hope. But how does that even work, with his secret eating away at him?
It's tragic. Elizabeth is everything he wants. Family, normalcy, love. But he can't tell her anything. It's like he's pushing her away to protect her from his own darkness, you know?
Isolating himself even more. So sad.
And it eats at him. He wants that support, that love, but his guilt won't let him have it. Another thing the creature's kind of ruined, even without meaning to.
Okay, and before we get to the really heartbreaking stuff, what about Clerval? Victor's friend, he's important, right?
Totally. Clerval's almost the opposite of Victor. He loves art, he's a good dude, kind of represents the world Victor's lost touch with, you know?
Makes sense he brings Clerval to Scotland when he's building this companion.
Yeah.
Like trying to recapture some of that light.
Yeah, but the darkness is too strong now. The creature, he's not just going to sit around, he follows Victor. Jealousy, rage, the whole deal. And he kills Clerval. Frames Victor for it, too.
Ugh, that's brutal. On every level, Victor's lost his friend. He's accused of murder. Talk about hitting rock bottom.
And it's all because of the creature.
Yeah.
But somehow, even then, there's a tiny bit of hope. Victor gets out, he goes back to Geneva, totally broken, but he's gonna marry Elizabeth. Like, that'll fix things, somehow.
Oh, the wedding night. We all know how this ends. But the way Shelley builds that tension is incredible.
Right. Victor's excited, obviously, but also terrified. He knows the creature's out there waiting to make him pay, tries to convince himself he can protect Elizabeth, but deep down, he knows better.
Oh, that better.
Yeah. The creature kills her. It's the final straw, all the pain and loss, it all comes crashing down on Victor. He loses everything, and he knows it's his fault.
So what's left at that point? Revenge.
All-consuming revenge. Victor dedicates his whole life to hunting down the creature. Across the world, harsh conditions, doesn't matter. He has to right this wrong, even if it kills him.
He even ends up in the Arctic, like the settings mirroring how empty he is inside.
Totally. And that's where Walton comes back in, remember him? The explorer from the beginning.
Oh, right. Full circle.
Yeah. Finds Victor, basically on death's door, out on the ice. Victor spills the whole story, this confession, warning.
Can you imagine hearing that? Your hero telling you he created a monster.
And it's not just that, it's that Victor and Walton, they're more alike than they realize. Both ambitious, both pushing limits. But Victor's story is like the cautionary tale. Be careful what you wish for.
So does he do it? Does Victor get his revenge?
Nope. He dies on Walton's ship. Worn out, heartbroken, defeated.
But the creature's still out there.
True. He actually finds Victor's body. And you know what? He's upset, shows remorse, even cries. He understands what he did, how much pain he caused. There's humanity in there, somewhere.
It's almost like he loved Victor in his own way.
Yeah, this messed up, tragic kind of love. But he knows he can't stay, not with humans. So he says goodbye to Walton and walks off into the Arctic to die.
Wow. Wow. This has been heavy, even for Frankenstein. Where do we even go from here?
I think Shelley wants us to sit with that unease. Makes you question scientific ambition, good and evil, what it means to be human, the whole deal. That's the power of this story. It sticks with you.
No doubt. Well said. We've covered so much in this deep dive. The characters, the choices, the consequences. It's a lot. And for everyone listening, think about this. Whatever you're exploring in your own life, whatever ambitions you're chasing, remember, Victor. Remember compassion, responsibility. Because our actions, they always have an impact, even if we don't see it right away. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Frankenstein. Until next time, keep those brain cells firing, and we'll see you soon for more.